and social class formation. So we are going to explain the terms social classes. We have come across social status, so we're not going to depict that, and social stratification. From this activity, you have 2 videos to watch. And after you have watched these 2 videos, you are required to use bullet to list 3 social classes. Show 2 ways social stratification is manifested in society. So make sure you do that. This is your activity. So from the activity above, you may observe the following points. All societies exhibit divisions or hierarchies based on aspects such as gender, wealth, marriage, ethnicity, race, status, prestige, power, and education. So how does it manifest? Division on gender. We have female and we have male. On wealth, we have rich and the poor. On marriage, we have very many divisions. We have singles, married, we have, these days we have gay, lesbians, we have single mothers, single fathers, ethnicity, we have the different, especially in our country, different traits. Race, we have the whites, the blacks. Status, different positions that people hold in the society. We have the principal, the deputy principal, then we have the teachers, we have the chief, we have the president, we have the MP, we have the governor, etc. The different positions. Then prestige. Prestige will come with the position that people hold. So those who hold high positions will have more prestige, or those people who are rich, they have more prestige than those who are poor. Then power, depending on the positions, especially in politics or in workplace. In workplace, those who hold the higher position have more power. Then we have education. For example, I was talking about when you started your class 1, you were so many, but as you continued with your education, some dropped out at class 3, others at class 5, others class 8, others form 4, and now you people, you are in university. So you can be grouped under the university student, those who have gone to university, then those who are form 4 leavers, those who are class 8 leavers. Now, when we talk of social class, may be defined as each of the division in society, each of the division in society. It may also be defined as a broad group of people with relatively similar systems of behavior, values, ways of life, which distinguish them from the other classes. Either each division in society or a broad group of people with relative similar systems of behavior, values, ways of life, which distinguish them from the other classes. Karl Marx categorized society into 2 broad groups based on their relationship to the means of production. This was done in the, especially the old system of society, old civilization. The burgess, that is the capitalist who own the means of production and therefore control the production control the production, economy, and therefore power. In the 17th and 18th century, the world became industrialized. So those who owned the industry were the burgesses. Then we have the proletariats, the working class, who own labor that they hire to the capitalists for wages. So this class were those people who are working in those industries. Look at our country today. There are many people who own their own businesses. Those would call them the burgesses. And then those people who work for them in those industries or in those businesses, they are the proletariats. Because there are so many to differentiate the social groups and rank them, there is no universal accepted ranking. We have looked at all those groups. These groups of how society can be divided: gender, wealth, marriage, all that. So there is no universal accepted ranking. The most common ranking are related to occupation, income, and education. Occupation, income, and education. All of these being related. So these ones are repeated. Occupation is the type of job that you are employed in. Income is the amount that you earn from this job, and education is tied to the occupation. So, for example, a vice chancellor of any university must be a person who has a degree, a doctorate degree, and has done several things that he has become a professor. That means his occupation is tied to his education. The income I would expect is high. So when we talk of the most common ranking being related to occupation, income, education, they are all related to each other. The idea is that some roles, occupations, are deemed more necessary than others, and therefore given more reward, income, prestige, and sometimes power. What do we mean by prestige? Prestige is how people will view a position, whether it has, you feel it's a good position to have, or it's not a recognized position. So when you talk of prestigious positions, there are those positions in the occupation that we hold, or in the society that are held, that make people to be envied, or that make people to feel that they are there, they have reached their actual self-actualization. Based on the overall level of desirability, the following hierarchy of social classes is often identified. We have upper, middle, and lower class. We will have blue, that is manual, white, non-manual classes, more about occupation than income. So these ones, the blue and white, may be under this, may fall either under the upper, the middle, or the blue manual means that people who are employed under the blue classes will be doing manual work. White classes will be in the office, maybe being administrators. So this fourth one may fall under any of these, because, for example, if you're in upper class, you may be in white collar job. If you're in middle class, you may be either the white collar job or the blue collar job. In the lower class, you may be blue collar job. The high-class occupations have high salaries, good working conditions, high chances of promotion, and great opportunities for personal initiative. So what do we mean by all that? High-class occupations. For example, in our university, which levels would you give to those people who work in our university in this, among the three, among the upper, middle, and lower? Which class do you think the VC, DVC, the DVC and the DVCs fall? The deans, the professors in the university fall, the lecturers fall, the subordinate staff, the non-teaching staff. There is the non-teaching and the subordinate. Those are two different things. Subordinate will be those who are the messengers, the clerks, the cleaners, and the like. So depending on their position, the salaries they earn, and the working condition, education influences occupations in that the better educated, the more likely one is to get a higher class position. That was on social class. Social stratification is the division between groups and the resulting hierarchies among the groups. So we have said that social class, let's go to social class, defined as each of the divisions in the society. Each of the divisions in the society. Social stratification, the divisions between groups and the resulting hierarchy among groups. Social status, social classes endorse status or standing in society, that is level of respect and honor one is accorded. It is the one that we are talking about, the possession that you hold in the society. So what are the level of respect or honor you are accorded? For example, if you are a principal, that is the position that you hold in the society. You are a principal of a secondary school. And in that category, there are different categories of principal. There are those of national schools, the counties extra, what do we call them? I can't remember, but they are the county schools and they are those village schools. So which position would be higher? The one from the principal in a national school or the principal in a day secondary school outside your village there. So when you talk of status, it's that standing in the society or the position that one holds and the level of respect or honor he is accorded by the people in the society. Social status is either ascribed or achieved. Ascribed status is status acquired due to belonging or being born in a given social status. No effort is required. So, for example, in your village, there were children who were born in families, maybe the father or the mother was a teacher, or a child whose parent is a pastor or a reverend in a church. Those children were always called pastor's kid, PK, that is pastor's kid, or the children were teachers, mtoto wa mwalimu. That was a status, that ascribed status. Look at those children who are born in rich families. They have ascribed status that we are rich. They are always very proud when they are in the society. Some of them are very proud, especially if their riches have been, they were not born, their parents were not born the riches, and they have grown rich as they were growing up. They become very proud. So that is ascribed status because They have been born in it. Then we go to the next, the ascribed, then we have achieved. Achieved status. Achieved status is one that is acquired as a result of one effort or unfortune. So this one, you have to work hard for it. For example, you come from a humble background. Your parents have been struggling to put you to school. And then you are through with the school. You start a business and you perform very well in that business. You work very hard. Even for your studies, you become, for example, right now, there are students who are earning money because they are entrepreneurs. They are doing some side kick and they are earning their keep. And after they are through with their education, they continue to grow their businesses. And they'll be in a position to uplift their parents, to uplift themselves, that in 10 years' time, they would have left their humble upbringing and they'll be very rich. That is achieved because of their effort, the much work they have put in gaining that wealth. That is achieved status. Social stratification and academic performance. So how are social stratification and academic performance related? There is this one video that will help you explain ways in which social class may be an impact society. So from the above activity, you may observe and make sure, though I've given this point, I need you to watch that video. 1, in open societies, one would expect that with mass education, social inequality would cease, but this is not the case. Why? So we are looking at the different divisions in the society, social class, the divisions in the society, and how education may affect or may either and academic performance, may hinder or may better the performance of students. Impact of academic performance because of the social class. From the activity above, you may have observed the following. In open societies, like our country, it's open society. One would expect that with mass education. When you talk of mass education, everyone, the poor, the lower class, the middle class, the upper class are being educated. All of them, education is compulsory from primary to secondary these days. So that means everybody is being educated. So mass education. Social inequality would cease. So when everybody is being educated, should there be that social inequality? Should there be that lower class, that middle class, that upper class, or higher class? So why is there still division when everybody is being educated? Should education bring about social stratification, or should it make it possible for everybody to be at par? Part of the reasons is that educational performance seems to be influenced by the social class and status of individuals. By the social class and status of individuals. Sociology suggests that family background plays an important role in educational performance. Do you think so? The family background has an important role in education performance. The family that you come from, does it influence how you perform you performed in your KCPE, in KCSE, how you are performing right now in the university. They identify non-school factors that explain the educational performance of different classes. Non-school factors that influence educational performance, we have parent behaviors and attitudes. So look at the way parents behave. From different background, do they have the same behavior and attitudes toward education? For example, who would be more inclined for their student to be serious in the studies that they undertake? The ones from the lower class, the middle class, or the upper class? Supportive home environment. Which class, the lower class, the middle class, or the upper class, would have a supportive environment? That means there is a conducive atmosphere at home to do the studies. Maybe you have enough time, you have enough materials, you have enough light, you have enough food, you have enough clothing, and the like. Access to role models, encouragement, and inspiration. Among the three levels of the classes that you have mentioned, the lower, the up, the middle, the upper, which of them have role models to emulate? The family background. Do you have, from the lower class, do they have people they can look upon and say, I would like to be like this one? I would like to learn and achieve and the like. Who encourages their learners? The lower class, the middle class, or the upper class? Inspirations. Is it from the lower class, the upper class, the middle class? Medium of instruction being the language used at home, hence better vocabulary and understanding. Look at the different levels. Which language do the lower class use at home? Do they use their mother tongue? Do they use Kiswahili? Do they use English? The middle class, the upper class, which language do they use? The upper class will use English. And we know that in our country, English is the medium of instruction, or the language that is used to instruct or to teach in schools. And therefore, by the time a nursery school pupil is entering nursery, he already knows the language. But from the lower class, a child may have been born and brought up to that level using mother tongue. So he enters nursery school. He will start being taught English the first time. So before he gets to know that language that he or she is being instructed in, the one from upper class is already ahead of him. So medium of instruction used at home also determines the performance. Then we look at access to storybooks, magazines, and newspapers, textbooks. Which class will have these? Is it the lower class, the middle class, the upper class? Children from the lower class, they may not come across these books, storybooks. Storybooks, they'll find them in mostly when they go to secondary school, if there is a library. But at home, they never come across storybooks, magazines. There are no newspapers. Their parents cannot afford newspapers, apart from those newspapers which are used maybe to tie some items from the shop or from the market. Textbooks, they may be sharing textbooks with their friends because their parents cannot afford to buy. So the performance of such will be, all those factors will determine the performance of learners depending on the family background. Social class background and education. How does social class and family background affect education performance? Children from well-off families are more likely to experience high quality home environment that are supportive to learning. High quality home environments that are supportive to learning. I have said that when you talk of high quality home environment, when you come from school, let's take a child who is in class 8 now, preparing for their KCPE. They will come from home tired. They'll find they have snacks. So they'll be told, pack your bag there, sit down, take a snack, and then you go and do your homework. They have a place where they usually do, a study room where they usually do their homework. They have good lighting. They have somebody who is working at home to enable them to have their good time in doing their homework, so they will not be having chores to go and do after school. And therefore, their home environment is high quality. If it is lighting, they have electricity. So the electricity will provide them with good lighting. If it is the room, it is well ventilated, has good enough space for everybody and the like. They attend preschool, which support their later learning. These days, preschool is a compulsory, though it's not indicated as so. It is compulsory for all learners. And therefore, previously, there were learners who are going to class 1 without the preschool education. Those who have attended preschool will perform better because they already have the basics of language, arithmetic, and the like. Have learning materials available at home, electricity for homework as opposed to the overcrowded poor homes. Receive extra tuition. You have heard of parents who say that they are paying for their children to be tutored by somebody. So you always find them with bags during the holidays or during the weekend. They are going to the tutor's home to be tutored. Extra tuition apart from what they are given in school. They receive proper nutrition and health care. Poor children may be malnourished, hungry, or in poor health, which limits how well they can learn. So for poor students, their home environment is poor and does not support learning. Imagine, some of you have experienced it, so it's not imagining. Some of you have gone through it. You are coming from home, and by the time you are reaching home, there are chores waiting for you to do. You are the one to go to the river, and the river may be 2 kilometers from home. You fetch water. You are not going to fetch one jerrycan of water. Maybe you have to fetch 5 jerrycans. Others will have to look for food. Others will have to look for firewood. Others will have to milk their cattle and take the milk to the dairy. Others, I don't know. There are so many chores that they are there that by the time you are through with all the chores, you're so tired, even when you sit down, you cannot concentrate on your studies. So those are some of the things that the family background that may affect educational performance. At the same time, social status may expose individuals to better curricula. 844 against international curriculum that provide better higher educational opportunities. So we have the middle class. They will educate their children with on this curriculum 844 and the CBC now being introduced. The higher class will educate their children in the international curriculum. They are the ones who take their children to Brabant, Hillcrest, St. Augustine's, Riara, and the like, because they can afford. So they expose their learners to better curriculum that they provide better higher education opportunities. Another one is allow for better quality learning environments. Expensive but high quality private schools that offer high quality education opportunities versus public schools and low quality public schools that offer schools. They may have like 30, 40 students per class. So who will perform better? A pupil in class in Machakos Academy, which has 100 pupils, or a pupil in a private school like which is the best school, private school in Machakos? Let's say Machakos Academy, which has maybe 20 or that students. We look at individual attention of the teacher, especially class 1 or grade 1. So family pupils from poor family will perform poorly because the schools that they attend may be poorly equipped. Their parents may not afford even to cater for some of the items that are required. Education and social mobility. Social mobility is a subheading. So watch these two videos and using your own words, define social mobility. Explain two ways in which individuals may move from one class to another. So, what is social mobility? And most of the students confuse this. This one should go together. Social mobility, not just mobility. Social mobility. Please note that. Social mobility is the movement across and within classes. Across and within classes. Please note that, because I usually get very disappointed when I'm in class teaching this, and then when an exam comes for students to explain what social mobility, they tell me it is immigration, which is very, very disappointing because those students do not read their notes. They have the notes and they do not read them. So social mobility, the movement across and within classes. We have said the classes is lower class, middle class, upper class. So it is the movement across or within these classes. It is either horizontal or vertical. Horizontal mobility, individuals move within the same class. Within the same class. For example, from the upper class to lower upper class. That is movement within the same class. Vertical mobility is the movement between classes, up or down the classes. For example, from lower class to upper class, or from upper class to middle class. People will always, for example, in your village, there must have been a rich person who lost his wealth. He was in the upper class. After losing his wealth, his family went to the middle class, and maybe right now they don't have anything, they are in the lower class. That is vertical mobility. Horizontal mobility, we have said this, moving within the class. It's like, for example, you have, maybe your family has been in middle class, but as time went on, they became upper middle class, from lower middle class to upper middle class, or from lower class. Within the lower class, there are those who usually work, and they work from hand to mouth. Whatever they get, the food that they get, for that, the money that they're earning will only be for food for that day. They don't know where they are going to get the meal for next day. Then they find a better job, which will allow them to get maybe food for a week, but they don't know the food for next week will come from where. That will be moving from lower class to upper lower class. So that is horizontal mobility. Vertical mobility may be either downward or upward. Upward is when you move from, you have worked very hard, you can afford now even to buy, you have moved from a one-tent house to a two-roomed house, or from a two-roomed house to a two-bedroomed house. You have moved from lower class to middle class. That is vertical, upward mobility. When we talk of downward vertical mobility, it's somebody who is falling. You have been rich, now you are poor. You had a very good job, but through the COVID pandemic, you lost your job, and that is or the house, you move from middle class to going downward. Since classes are strongly correlated with occupation, and occupation is dependent on education, education can result in upward mobility. You had already mentioned that. The occupation, classes are strongly correlated with occupation. Occupation is dependent on education, so education can result in upward mobility. Education provides knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed by occupations. Since there is no inherent factor that can prevent a person from a lower class obtaining the needed knowledge, education is seen as an easy way to attain higher status. However, this is not always possible because social mobility via education is preconditioned on. So right now, there are so many people who have been educated, who have degrees, who have master's degree, who are doctors, but they don't have a job. So that's what we are saying, that this, to attaining a higher status, may be preconditioned on access to perfect educational opportunity or relatively good opportunity. So these days, almost everybody can be able to access education. Access to perfect entry into occupation via education qualification or relatively good entry to desired occupation. So not everybody has access to occupation. So many people are struggling outside there. So only those who can get the jobs will be able now to move. If they were in the lower class, when they get that job, they work very hard to earn a salary and to improve their position. Because when you are employed at a lower grade. So you have to work hard to be promoted. And as you are promoted, you will have a better position in the society. That means a better, you improve your state, the class level. Perfect promotion via education qualification or relative good opportunities for promotion. So when you talk about promotion, we are saying that access to perfect entry into occupation. You usually learn so that you can be qualified. And we are saying that these days, it is not it's not guaranteed that you get your certificate with your B.Ed certificate in education arts and you'll be employed immediately. It's not guaranteed. So not everybody has access to perfect entry into occupation. So and then there's not everybody who has a perfect promotion can be perfectly promoted via education qualification or relatively good opportunities for that. There are people who have remained in one job group from the time they were employed 30 years ago, and they are at the same because of the conditions that are given in that employment. However, access to education opportunities is far from perfect and is often dependent on social background. While acquired education is also of varying quality depending on social class and background. Similarly, not all educated people get employment, and gender, social classes, etc. are factors in entering occupations and career progression. We usually, people especially who progress, it is on who you know. We have seen nepotism, we have seen favoritism, especially in workplace. People with lower qualification than you getting promoted because they know somebody or because they are of the tribe, the proper tribe at that specific workplace. Such things happen. And therefore, there are people who are better qualified, but they don't get jobs, they don't get promoted, and therefore they remain at the same class level. Types of social mobility. There are two types of social mobility: sponsored mobility. Sponsored mobility, whether qualified or not, individuals with ascribed status. Remember, we talked about ascribed status. Ascribed status, we say that it is the status that you're born in. For example, you are born in a rich family, in an upper class family, in a middle class family. That is ascribed status. With ascribed status are able to access education and consequently better occupation and promotions with little struggle. For example, the son of a minister. So for example, you may have been schooling with the son of a minister. Mkimaliza university hivi, yeye atapata job immediately. Na wewe pengine utapata, you'll be on BOG. So yeye amepata permanent na wewe umepata BOG. Wakati utakuwa ukipata hiyo permanent, he'll be promoted to the next level. That is what we are talking about, sponsored, because there is somebody who will do it for him. That is called sponsored mobility. Then contest mobility. For most people, they are in the context of competition, as it is only their intelligence, hard work, tenacity, and good fortune that can provide them with upward mobility. Hurdles include lack of school fees, being edged out by others, dropping out of the context, lack of access to ideas, knowledge and skills that provide the mobility. So when you talk of context mobility, here you have to work hard for you to perform. For you to remove your family from that lower class to middle class, you have to work very hard. We have seen students who have struggled through school from primary to university, but after they have completed their university courses, they were able to complete, and by good luck, they get a very good job. When they get that good job, they work very hard in their job. And therefore, by working hard, they get a good salary. First of all, when they are employed, they get a good salary. But they don't stop there. They don't feel comfortable in that position. They work harder to improve their status. When they work hard, they are promoted. And as they are being promoted, their social position will also be improved. That is context mobility. You have moved from lower class to middle class, from middle class to upper class because of the work that you have done. That is context mobility, or the achieved status. We talked about that. C, open and closed societies. In some societies, movement between such divisions called social mobility is possible. Such societies are called open societies. Movement between such division, that is lower class, middle class, upper class. So when there is such, we call it open societies. In other societies, movement between hierarchies is not possible, hence closed societies. So we have such closed societies. Remember in history of education, did I teach you history of education? No. In history of education, we talked about classes in ancient India and ancient Egypt. And also in medieval period, there are also those classes. The lawyers, the nobles, the knights, we had the guild, and we had those serfs. They would not move from their class to another. They were not allowed. For the Indian, we had the caste system. Those castes, if you are in this caste, you remained in that caste. You are not allowed to move to the other caste. If you did that, you are excommunicated. And even today in India, those castes remain. There, you cannot move from one caste to another. And that's what we are calling closed societies. The movement between hierarchies is not possible. Hence, such classes are closed. That movement is closed. Societies are closed. In open societies, movement between classes could be through acquisition of wealth, education, marriage. So acquisition of wealth, for example, you come up with a good idea and you start a business on that. And that business brings you wealth. So you'll be able to move from the class where you are born to improve your status. That is movement. The mobility. We have said about social mobility being movement within or from one class to another. You can be educated, and when you are educated, you get a good job, you get a good salary, you are able to improve your lifestyle. By that, you are moving from one class to another. Then marriage. There are girls who will marry, they have been brought up in a poor family, but they get married to a person who is rich. By that, they will be able to uplift their status. They may be able even to improve the status of their parents and their siblings. So the open society movement between classes could be through the three factors. Reducing the role of social class on educational attainment. So how can we reduce the role of social class in educational attainments? The first one is affirmative action. In general, the idea behind affirmative action is that one recognizes that certain groups are already disadvantaged in important ways. An attempt is therefore made to ease the condition of their entry and thereby reduce the effects of their background on chances of success or access to benefits. Affirmative action in education is done by lowering entry point for disadvantaged social group, giving them first priority on entry to to national schools. For example, affirmative action. You have heard of, especially where girls, no, that one we cover in gender, where schools, especially semi-arid and arid areas, don't perform well. And therefore, when it comes now to when schools are admitting from ones, they first give priority to such areas, and they, depending on the marks that the student have, how they have performed, they will give priorities also to such areas. And therefore, you find in national schools, there are students who have performed, like they have 200 and something, but they have been called to such schools because they want to give such students the opportunity to study in such big institutions. So this is the summary, and then there are some. Can you do these activities? Activities for that lesson. And with that, we come to the end of our lesson.